my goodness. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Let me say this. Last week, I listened to Reverend David online, and he said, "Ooh, it's so easy. I'm going to have Reverend Sandra come in." And I thought, oh, that's so good, because we get to push the easy button. I love, love, love it. And so today I want to talk a little bit about this idea of pushing the easy button and what that means. And as I started thinking about this, one of the things I do first off is, God help me, tell me what it is that you want to say to and through me, right? And so I am always of this mindset of, that all of this stuff is not complicated. It comes with grace and ease. It really does. But the thing is that we as humans, we make it difficult. The things that are easy and simple, we make it difficult because oh my gosh. So the example that I used was, that my nephew in my car, I'm trying to figure out how to work the radio. And what people say is that they make these things simple enough for a 5-year-old to get it. But we make it difficult. We sit there and we think it's got to be so complicated. We're pushing all of this stuff and it's got to be this and it's got to be that. And really, when the little kid figures it out, it's like, am I smarter than a 5th grader? Well, the thing that I've found is sometimes of my own, I can't quite figure it out, because when I'm in my own stuff, I'm trying to, analyze everything, break everything down, and I am trying to make it be the way that I think it ought to be. And really, it's so simple. I remember somebody told me, if you just look out in nature, nature tells you everything that you need. But we make it very complicated. It couldn't possibly be that the trees have a message for us. It couldn't possibly be that the grass has a message for us. It couldn't possibly be that the sun rising every morning has a message for us. This too shall pass. But we make it so difficult because we want to be right. And so when I started thinking about this push the easy button, this idea of the flow, I really wanted to just, understand what it was that we were to learn here. There's been lessons over and over again that have shown us that as we move through life, life gives us exactly what we need for our own highest good and our own growth. And yet what we do still is we try to break it down, we try to analyze it, we try to, what is it that scientists say? We try to make it so that it is repeatable in all instances, and it stands the proof of time. We develop these theories, we want to play it out. We want it to be a particular way so that it is repeatable over and over again. As a matter of fact, I remember reading this book, The E-Myth, and it talked this whole thing about, the way that McDonald's is structured, right? So that they could turn out the exact same product wherever they are in the world, whether they're in China or whether they're in California. It's the exact same product, and it needs to be reproduced over and over again. Well, the thing about that is that we all come here and we think, oh, but I'm somehow different. I am different. And so the things that come up in my life, the challenges that come up in my life, we want to say nobody else has ever experienced this before. I mean, the heat that we survived this week, it's this individualized thing, this one thing that we've gone through, but nobody else. I mean, somehow my experience, there is this tendency to think that my challenge and my experience are always more intense than yours. It's almost as if we've got a competitive thing that goes on in our mind. Nobody had it quite as bad as I do. You hadn't been there. You don't know. We have this idea that all of these challenges come up, and the Bible is there to show us That people have gone through these things for centuries, over and over again. There have been challenges, and sometimes greater challenges than that. But if we make them complicated, as a man thinketh, so is he. Now, just for a minute, right? I put the little Marianne Williamson thing in my thing because I thought it was so wonderful when I first read it. And she says, I thought you'd never get here. And the response was, well, that was what took me so long. When we have a thought, thoughts are powerfully creative. Powerfully creative. And so when you think a thought, if you get up here and think, oh, I'm not good at this, guess what? You're right. If you think that you have experienced something and nobody else has, that'll be your experience. If you think that it is hard to overcome, that will be your experience. When you try to look around you and think that somehow what you're going through, because I will say that I've been there, done that, and got t-shirt, right? Got a t-shirt. Because there is a part of me that wants to, talk about this level of suffering that we all do. We want to make it seem like nobody else. And so what happens is we make things real because we're worshiping at the altar of our own experience. So I thought to myself, what does that mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? How is it that I hit the easy button when it comes down to this? How is it that I see that the things that I am going through are the challenges that everybody goes through? Well, here, let me tell you something. And y'all are here in a New Thought Church, right? Even those folks on the line, yeah. Let me tell you something. When you change your thinking, you change your life. When you change how you look at things, this is a Wayne Dwyer, what you look at, it changes. So wonder if we started looking at this, who we are, very differently. So newsflash, you're not just human beings. You are a spiritual being. You are a spiritual being. You are a spiritual being. If you look at yourself and what you were going through as all there is, there will be this grasping, this holding on. Okay, so I got to tell y'all this. Y'all know I always like to tell my business. So I got to take a detour here. My beautiful niece who lives with me. I said to her this week, I said, this is, I'm just keeping it real. I said to her, do I look old to you? Right. I said, do I look old to you? And she says, depends. And I was like, on what? And she says, well, what are you comparing it to? Oh, isn't that what you said? It's relative, depends on what. Okay, thank you. This is what I heard. So I sat there and I thought to myself, like, because I really don't feel old. right? I really don't move through the world as if I'm aging. I really don't have this mindset that there is something that should be deficient in me. I don't have that feeling, and so therefore I don't have that experience. And so what I do is I move through the world as I've always done. But in a moment, those ideas can change. And what causes those moments to change or those experiences to change? Is it somebody else telling you how you should feel or what you should think? Or is it your experiences? Is it diagnosis? What is it that changes how you feel about yourself and see yourself? Is it this body, right? Is it your body? But if you're a spiritual being, what does that body then say? This is a lesson right out of the Matrix, y'all, right? It's a lesson right out of the Matrix. And for those of you who have not seen the Matrix, there is this thing about what we, this mental person tells our body. So if you are of the mindset that your body can do what it does, then there is this wonderful thing about our bodies that they have this amazing ability to heal themselves in spite of. But the problem is that we don't want to change around how we live within these bodies. I'm sorry, I sometimes I get into these things probably because of the yoga stuff and how much value I place in nutrition and food and anger and all of these other things. But our bodies are made to be in the flow. Reverend David talked last week about the masculine and the feminine and how the masculine can constrict and the feminine is about flow. When he talked about that, I was thinking to myself, absolutely. And we flow to the degree that we believe that we do. But then there's all this blockage that comes in. The blockage is the feelings that we can't. The blockage is the judgments. The blockage is the things that we won't forgive. The blockage is all the stuff that we put in our body. We take in anger. We live in anger. We watch anger on the TV, and then we wonder why we have anger in our lives. I mean, there is so many times at which we can change around the direction and the trajectory of how we think. Things are really easy if we hit the easy button. But we constrict. And guess why? It's because we've got a mindset. Oh, and y'all, I can't even go into how often and how long we have embraced a mindset that has told us about the stuff that we need, the constrictions on our life. And because we get into that, we continue to pay the piper. Who is the piper? The doctors that deal you these drugs. I'm sorry. Right? The people who would have you think that you're sick and that you can't do. There's so many things that inhibit our ability to live life more fully. What's the easy button? So when I started thinking about this thing of the easy button, for me, I started thinking about flow and what does it mean to flow? I started thinking about love and forgiveness and what that would look like. I started thinking about this idea of release. And I started to think back on the conditions that Jesus found himself in. God, if this is not your will, pass this from me. Right? I don't even want to deal if this is not your will. But thy will be done. And there's a point of surrender that all of us can come to in our lives. And knowing that we are not our bodies is one of the first places that we can surrender. Because the idea that you are your body keeps you stuck in a body thinking, oh no. I love this story out of, it's just popped into my mind. I love this story out of, what is that story? It's the story about the wave, and it came in Tuesdays with Maury. I don't know if you guys have read that book, but it's such a beautiful story for me. And it was talking about Maury telling his student about the wave. And he was like, he's saying that this wave is just bobbing along on the ocean. And it's just bobbing along and it's just basking in the sun and thinking about how wonderful it is just to be bobbing along. And then all of a sudden something catches this little wave's attention. What he sees is that there's a breaker wall or a shore up ahead of it. And it sees that other waves that are ahead of it are crashing into that breaker wall, right? They're just crashing. And all of a sudden the wave started thinking, wait a minute, hold up. You know, wanting to stop the flow. Hold up. And the wave behind it is still basking in the sun and is flowing and is flowing. And the wave is like saying, wait, hold up. And he's like, what's wrong with you? And he's like, we're all gonna die. Don't you see up ahead? There's the breaker wall. We're about to be no more. And the wave behind it is looking at it like, get a grip. Like, hit the easy button. You've misidentified yourself. You're not a wave. You're part of the ocean. You are part of the ocean. Each and every one of us is part of God. And when we start to think that all we are is just this, nice as it may be, right? But when you think you're just this, you get caught up in something totally different. You are not that. You are part of something bigger, something greater that is moving through you, that is expressing through you into the world. And so when you start to think that it's all about the bills, when you think that it's all about the job and the stuff that you're going through, you've misidentified. Your worth is not caught up in what your zip code is. Your worth is not caught up in what you put on your back. Your worth is not caught up in your educational level and all of the things that you think you attain. That is not it. There is but one power, one presence in the universe, God the good, God the good. And that is flowing through you. That is you here and now. But we forget. Because then we step back into the everyday of it, right? And we forget about our own divinity. We forget about all of that stuff. And I tell you, sometimes we need to just take an easy button with us. The moment we see something that causes us to step out of that, hit that easy button. What does that easy button look like for you? I tell you, I had trained myself for so long to remind myself that breathing is this wonderful gift. I mean, just taking a breath. It centers you, doesn't it? But we do it because breathing is involuntary. We don't even have to think about it. But the moment you catch yourself in the process, the breath of life. It says God breathed into you the breath of life and you became a living being. That same breath is God's breath. It's in you. It flows through you. It is you. And guess what? When that breath seems to be no more, or when you struggle with that breath, it's not as if it ends. There is a transition. There is a flow to all of this. The interesting thing is that we were taught that even before you were born, that God knew you. Right? Every hair on your head, every step you would take, And why is that? Because it is you. It is you. So there is no struggle, no strain. There is nothing to be afraid of. There is nothing to resist. Because what you resist, we know. We know. And yet, what happens over and over again is we try to control. We've been taught to control. Oh my gosh. We can relax. So when you think about the progression as we go along, right? As we think about this escalation of who we are, we've moved through this idea of identifying with our bodies. We've moved through all of these stages. And when we get to a certain point of that I amness, that awareness of who and what we are, we could just relax. This, when I think about this level of thinking, for me, it is this knowingness that comes over me, that God is all there is. What does that mean? That means whoever I encounter, God. Whatever opposition, whatever struggle, whatever strife, whatever pain, whatever, God. And as a matter of fact, I have to surrender to that idea, because there's a point at me that wants to see opposition everywhere. Opposition, like, how can God be opposed? In our thinking. Thinking makes it so. Wonder if we let our imaginations take over. Wonder if we just imagined that this too is a gift from God, designed to help me to see, to maybe wake me up out of this thing, this idea that I'm running this. Wonder if this is to shake me up. Whatever it is. So let me, and I gotta let y'all go, but let me give you this thing. This past week, everybody kept talking to me about the weather. I don't know, Donna, it was, oh, it's 90 degrees. Oh, it's so hot. It's this, that, and the other. And I said, the only problem is that we actually have to wear clothes, right? Because if I, was in a swimsuit with a margarita in my hand, that 90 degrees would have just been perfect, right? But we had to keep on doing what we were doing, right? And so some people had a problem with it. It was like I just kept thinking to myself, it's all good. It's all good, right? So there's a part of us that we have to recognize that we can always change our thinking about the things that we see. One of the easiest, simplest prayers that I know is, God, help me see this differently. Or help me see this as you see it. Right? And when we sit in that, when we rest in that, what we know is that we have nothing to fear. There is nothing to resist, nothing to worry about. There is only God. There is only God. There is only God. For some, that'll be, how do I see that? How do I imagine that? How do I sit in that? There is only God. There is only God. You are part of it. All is well. I don't care what your experience has been. It's been so that you can see there is only God. There is only God. It's so funny because we can pick up so many things, right? We can sing a jingle about this or that, you know. I mean, I could start with, you know, with 2 all beef patties. Y'all know the rest of it, right? We could start a jingle about some of any old thing, and you know. Let me tell y'all, I met this guy. I'm sorry, I'm always telling stories. I met this guy, and all of a sudden, the song from Green Acres is the place to be. I mean, we know the songs, right? But when somebody tells you there is only God, you got your resistance up. Start that as your mantra. There is only God. There is only God. And all is well. Hit the easy button.